Parker said after Washington, he just felt like the ball didn't bounce his way. Is that kind of the same way you're feeling?
No. I think that, number one, Washington was electric. The crowd was amazing. Their team played with a great sense of purpose and energy. They came into the game as the number one defensive team in our conference. And that's hard-earned because the month is February. I think that those numbers right there are really true. And they do it in such a unique way that I think whoever plays them, it takes a little bit of time to get adjusted to the way they play their zone, the aggressiveness of it, the way they play the perimeter. And we were no different. But the first 8 minutes, 10 minutes of that game, they set the tone by being ferocious, ready. And I thought they were the quicker team. They beat us to a number of second shots, loose balls. And, the tone set a lot of times, at this time of year. It's if you're soft, this isn't the place, this isn't the time of year to take the court. And I thought our team, for the most part, played with some really good energy themselves and togetherness. But you got to be ready at the beginning. If you dig yourself a hole and you're always playing from behind, that in and of itself takes away from your energy, and I think keeps the crowd on an away court electric. And I thought the start of our game set the tone for a lot of things.
Did you think by this time you'd have the defensive solved?
Yeah, I did. This is my 14th year as a head coach, and this is maybe the worst defensive team. I think the first year here at Arizona, which, you got to recognize kind of who we would have been then. It's hard to even evaluate what we did, so much going on. And maybe my first year as a head coach at Xavier. But other than those two, this is it for sure. And every team has their strengths. We certainly have a number of them, and every team has their weaknesses. And it's up to the coach and the staff and the players to commit towards improvement on the things that we can improve. And we're hard at work, I'll tell you that, at trying to become a more consistent, better overall defensive team.
I'm sure you've asked the why, but you don't know why it's become this.
I do know why, yeah. Statistically, I think that we give up open three-point shots, sometimes too many attempts, sometimes too good of looks. That's been consistent from the opening bell of our year in November till now. And we foul way too much. I think we have a couple guys on our team that, I'm going to say there's about 1,100 players that play college basketball. And if you start going fouls per minute played, they're in the top 25% of that. And, it's I wish we could have fixed it and maybe been a little bit further along, but there's still plenty of time left. And, our I think, mantra moving forward isn't to win the Pac-12. It's not to beat the next team. It really has to be to look at ourselves and have a sense of improvement, to know that, we have to get better at certain areas of the game for us to have the most successful season that we can.
After that big block by DeAndre on that last play against Washington, do you think your guys defensively were out of position, or do you think there was just one of those things where just nothing you can do? Balls blocked?
No, there's nothing you can do. It was a tremendous play by DeAndre, and it was a great shot by Dominic Green. You got to make it, and he made the big shot. And really, that's the thing about Washington. In that last 4 or 5 minutes when we became very hot on offense, and we did, we scored virtually every time down. Either we scored or got fouled. They did the same, and that's kind of what we're talking about. If you could ever get a couple stops, then that would have been to our advantage. But we really weren't able to get those stops down the stretch. Last 8 or 10 possessions, I'd be willing to bet that they scored or got fouled on maybe 6 or 7 of them. And we did the same, but it equaled itself out, and we lost.
I'm not asking the why, but more so the people involved. The why the people involved aren't doing what they need to do, apparently, because that's part of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, we're challenged personnel-wise defensively. I think each of our guys has the opportunity for growth, but collectively there's a number of team things that we can do, and it starts with the oldest players on our team, but it's not exclusive to them. There's no finger pointing. When things are going well and you win, everybody should get the credit. And if you have a tough loss like we did at Washington, number one, you have to recognize that we lost to a good team, a team that played with tremendous spirit and effort, and you have to give them a lot of credit. On our end, no question, the way we lose is very consistent. We've talked about our defense. This is also simultaneous with our defense. I think this could be the best offensive team that I've had as a head coach. Again, numbers reflect that, and we've had a lot of great moments offensively. We've had some moments here at McKale that allowed us to get to the winner's circle, but really the same thing happened in a number of our home games as happened at UW, and that is, we matched points. We had a hard time getting stops. We fouled near the end, and but we ended up getting 2 more, 5 more, 3 more points than the opponent. You start playing in those possession games constantly. Once in a while, that ball won't bounce your way, and it didn't. DeAndre's block led to a 3-point shot.
Do you think a lot of this is mental, in the sense that you've got really skilled guys and it's just not translating because they're not as bought in or maybe not as well versed in playing defense?
I think everything's on the table. I think a number of our players maybe are blessed more on the offensive end than they are on the defensive end. But I've never seen a team, and maybe they're out there, that can have the collective success and go deep into the tournament and win championships because they play one side of the basketball. And as an individual player, I don't know anybody that gets where they want to get to when they leave college, when they play when the ball is on their side of the court, but yet can't defend. So, really, if you think about it, and there are 2 goals that a lot of our players have. Number one, we want to win, and then number 2, each of our guys would like to leave Arizona and go on and play professionally. But you have to be able to defend and play offense. And for us, it's the scales are really tilted in the favor of our offense.
Is it to a point where it's worrying to you at this point?
No, I mean, I think that we have to take the good and the bad. Every team has their own personality and strengths. So can we get even better on offense? Can we be, the best offensive team that's played at Arizona maybe in the last 14 years, 20 years? At the end of our season, can we become that good? Is that our upside? That will offset a lot of, negatives on the other end of the court. And like I've spent some time talking about, it's not as if we're going to practice and not addressing, our fouling, not addressing the 3-point shooting. And ironically, you prepare. Everybody knows that big test is coming. That big test has arrived. The talent of both UCLA and SC is off the charts. Both teams can score as well as, in my mind, any team in the country, especially UCLA. If you look at their skill level, the way they play offense, who is on their team. They play at a fast pace. They're very skilled. They know what they're doing, and they can pick on weak defenders. And, for us, UCLA certainly could come in here and have a big scoring night based on who our team is defensively.
Did you see, I don't know if you heard or saw that Ken Palm had a story a couple weeks ago in The Athletic about defensive, and every coach has offensive capital and a pool of defensive capital, and you are what you are at this point, and maybe you can improve your defense, but you might take away from offense if you do that. I don't know if you read that or believe in that kind of concept.
I would say that that's correct. You just have a lot of, equity is kind of on both sides of the ball. You're 75 practices in, you're 24 games in. We're about ready to change into the second week of February, and we're clearly headed down the home stretch of conference play. So especially if you're healthy, sometimes an injury can really change your personality. And I think for us, some of that has happened. Raleigh wasn't himself against Washington. It's difficult when you miss practices and you're shut down and then you're back and then you have a minute restriction and you look back and say, well, he missed 11 weeks before he did anything. In fairness to Raleigh, we're hoping he can really hit his stride down the home stretch, but we're playing through that. We're playing with that right now. And, he hasn't had any extra soreness or anything from this past game, which is a great sign. But I think we're all looking forward to the day when he can be a part of what we do And I think, it's certainly has to be frustrating for him with all that he's gone through with his foot.
So right now you're at 6 offense and 106 defense. So would you prefer to be like 20 and 50 maybe, or what would work, I guess?
I think we've been 29. I didn't think either of those teams was very good on defense. If we were better, we had a chance to be really, really good. 3-1, and we're 106 right now. Same practices, same. McHale hasn't changed a whole lot, so we have to tweak, and it's up to the coach. Sometimes what's worked in the past doesn't necessarily work with the current team, and it's up to us to adjust, and we have a little bit. But defense, zone, man, trap, not trap. It's comes down to really those same things. If you look at Washington's success, they play a very different style defensively than we do, but it's commitment, right? It's effort. Those two things are really important. It's communication. It's individual defenders like Thibault, who you could tell has really embraced what they do. I mean, he's, in my mind, the defensive player of the year. He impacts the game by the way he steals the ball and his activity, and it's contagious. When a guy like that plays to that level defensively, it spreads throughout, and Washington's able to win many games when the ball doesn't go in, and that's why I think they have a chance to win the conference, because they're that one team right now that can really win in spite of their offense. And if their offense is clicking, which it was the other night, then I think they're certainly able to beat anybody.
Have you given any consideration in playing a zone, and do you think that would even benefit your team and the makeup of your team?
We have to look at mixing it in, but there's going to be a lot of wide open shots that are going to go up if we play zone. It's I think sometimes a fan who hasn't played the game, hey, let's go and put up a zone, and that's going to cure all. It can maybe change the dynamic in a particular possession, give a different look. It's like X number of possessions in a game where you go to it as much as anything to maybe create a little uncertainty or off balance. But when you start reinventing yourself, and then, again, you can put up a zone, but guys got to be committed. They got to move their feet. They got to communicate. Or you're going to go down the same line defensively as we are right now with our man-to-man.
There was a theory too in that story where it said, even if teams, if you're big, you have and if you're better 2-point defense, you have a chance to improve, and you probably fit that quality. I mean, is that encouraging in that sense that you maybe got some potential?
It's not encouraging, no. I mean, we do a good job around the basket, but we've done a pretty good job. I would say we've gotten better in that area. At times, if you go back to like even our UNLV game, they might have had 12 to 15 uncontested shots at the rim. That wouldn't happen today. And it's not just our bigs, it's really our team. A lot of times those types of shots start with our perimeter players getting beat. But we've been in the same mold and really from day one.
Sean, historically, if Arizona is good and UCLA is good, the conference is considered good no matter what else happens. Do you think that's changed or maybe stayed the same?
I mean, I'm sure to some degree it's changed, but there's a number of other programs, coaches, teams that have just really done a great job during my time. USC comes to mind in terms of their rise over the last couple of years. They're very talented, and certainly this year they're in contention for the regular season championship. And they've emerged. A few years ago they were on the outside looking in. That's not the case. Washington with Lorenzo was always a tough game, and for a while there, man, they were always right there at the throat of the conference championship. And kind of looking at what they have right now, I think they're doing an excellent job as well. Dana Altman, since he's come into the conference, Oregon's been right there at the top. So a lot of teams have changed and added to that equation, which I think the depth of the conference should be more of the focus than who's at the top. And when you're strong at the bottom, somebody has to finish at the bottom, but those teams are stronger. When the middle is vying for postseason, and the top is vying for seeds. That's when you really have a healthy conference. And I think coaches, everybody involved in the Pac-12, we're constantly in the quest of getting the most teams in postseason, the most teams into the NCAA tournament, and then hoping that we cross our fingers and can advance. So I think it's the depth that everybody should focus on, not just the historic rivalry. Of course, if UCLA and Arizona are both good, that helps the depth. But it's really everybody has to, I think, pull their weight.
When you look back at the tape and you see DeAndre's play, especially on the defensive end, some of the foul calls that were called against him, and then some of the calls for him on the other end, do you feel like there's a disparity in how the refs are officiating Aiden because of maybe his size? And do you think that's going to affect him down the road, especially when you guys get to the NCAA tournament?
No, I really don't. I'm certainly not worried about that. The tournament, that takes care of itself. But DeAndre isn't somebody who shows up in the Pac-12 every year. And if you're playing against him in our team, any time that you can flop or any time you can draw an offensive foul, it's to your advantage. It's not only a personal foul on him, but it's also a turnover. And, sometimes you have players on a quest to do what their coach is asking, and I don't blame anybody, but it's, savvy is a word that everybody loves to have in sports, the savvy of a player, a guy who just kind of sees that picture before it happens, you feel like he's been there and done that. He makes the right decisions and just has a way. And coaches are like that. I think sometimes you watch coaches and their team always seems to be in a tough game or has a way near the end of the game of making right decisions. And officials are too. The guys that have been through it understand the game within the game that, look, you have a guy out there who's 7'1", 260 pounds. He has to have freedom of movement and be able to turn. And if I were playing against him, I would probably try to trick me and flop and potentially create an offensive foul situation. And I think the experienced and really good officials kind of see through that. The ones that aren't as experienced or don't see through that, they fall for it. It's like that red light, green light deal. It's, you come through that intersection and sometimes you see the red, it's there, you stop. Once in a while you have that guy just doesn't pay attention, comes right through it. Officials on that call can change the game. And I think that's what all coaches hope doesn't happen, that the game within the game, what that other team is trying to do to somebody like a DeAndre doesn't affect the game. And by the way, if it is a charge, it should be called. But the flopping and I think the intent, that's something that it takes a lot of awareness and savvy. And there's good coaches, there's good players, there's bad players, bad coaches, and referees are the same. There's some really good ones, and there's some ones that aren't very good.
Has this team responded to losses the way you would have liked this season?
I think so. We've had 5. 3 of them came in one batch. It felt like 100. But I like the way we responded from those first 3. And I think the last game that we lost, it was from the Washington game, was Colorado. So we, I think, strung together a nice stretch. So we'll see here. We have a challenging week ahead. Both USC and UCLA are tournament teams. They're teams that are led by, in my mind, a number of NBA players. And, it's an exciting challenge. It really is. I watch Aaron Holiday and think about maybe who he was as a high school senior and just watching him grow and emerge. Man, he's one heck of a basketball player. I haven't seen too many guards that are better in college basketball than him. Obviously, Thomas Welsh, I've coached him, which seems like a decade ago, and his skill level at 7 foot compared, and also understanding how well he rebounds. There aren't many centers that have the skill set of him. And, Chris Wilkes is a terrific freshman. Jalen Hands is a terrific freshman. And Steve obviously does a great job coaching his team. You flip over to USC and Jordan McLaughlin, if there's a better point guard in the country, I'd love to see him. Chimezi Metu, I think, will have a long career beyond college. Benny Boatwright, his skill level, it goes on, and they're playing with a lot of confidence, USC is. And, with our defense the way it is, they could put 100 on us. They really could, both teams. So it's a great, great challenge, and hopefully it's a challenge we're all up to.
There are times that UCLA will struggle, and there are a couple times like last year and this year where just for some reason they really put it together against a team like Kentucky that has talent. What do you see when they put it together that they're doing?
I mean, it's hard to win. You know, I can't really speak on behalf of them other than, you know, I think when they're at their best, a lot like our team, that they have both their offense and defense going. They have, you know, a great togetherness and an effort with that togetherness that accompanies their team play. And when they do that, you know, obviously they're very talented. You know, we're similar. I mean, you know, you can't just play one side, got to play both, got to be together. Everybody's going to give UCLA their very best shot. And I think that's something that we share, Arizona, you know, to Steve's question. The history of both programs, you know, people are excited to play against UCLA. People are excited to play against Arizona. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with now. It has everything to do with what's been in place for decades. So those players, they become accustomed to it. And, you know, they're fearless, too. That's the other thing. A lot like us, we go on the road, we get the other team's best crowd, best shot. UCLA and SC, they're not going to come into McKale Center and not be able to, like, catch the ball in the first 2 minutes. They're going to be excited to play.
When you watch them, I mean, you focus mostly on especially these two teams, on recent games. I mean, it seemed like earlier in the year they were a whole different deal with UCLA and the whole China thing, and USC had some injuries and they had to deal with Milton and adjusting without him. I mean, do you feel like both those teams kind of...
Do you want me to answer the question you just asked?
Yeah, but well... Yeah.
So the question you just asked was, in the month of November, they were entirely different than they are now. Are you going to watch the month of November knowing that they're entirely different? No.
Well, I mean, and does that surprise you, I guess, that they're so much different now, or that they've reverted to maybe what they...
No. I think both teams have grown, and a lot like our team, you know, if you pull out the film of the Bahamas, you're going to waste a lot of time. You know, it's 75, 80, 90 days later. It's 20, 22 games later, and it's about now. It's about the last 2 weeks. It's about the Pac-12, and everybody has a sense statistically of maybe what they've done well or what they haven't from start to finish. But I think all coaches and players, the focus is on this recent stretch, this month, these last couple of weeks.
Maybe, Sean, I'm not saying losses are good, they're never really good, but maybe it takes something other than coaching to recalibrate your team to get kids to realize we need to get better at this specific thing, and defense, to your point.
Well, yes, especially when you've won a lot of games like we have. You know, it's you're critical. You know that you need to improve both as a player and as a coach. But yeah, we just keep winning. You know, and the sting of a loss sometimes gets everybody's undivided attention. And you know, my hope is that we can grow and build. You know, there are a number of programs and teams that are really good that lost this weekend. And I think all of us will try to utilize this weekend to make us better. And we're no different. Whether that happens or not, you know, I don't know. The one thing is you have to also consider your team's play. Sometimes you could play really well, lights out, and lose, you know. And once in a while, and to your point, Steve, you might have a half where you play well, but, man, a half where you're just awful and you win. And I know the end result is what we're after, but it's just really getting a feel for how well your team plays. You know, this week we could play really well and not win. And ditto for the other teams. I mean, I think you have 3 teams that will go against each other this week that are all talented, that are playing for bigger things. And, you know, if you're a fan of Arizona basketball, and you got these tickets, you're going to see 2 fantastic games this week at McKale Center. And I know our crowd will be alive and ready, and my hope is that our team will match that.
Thanks, guys.